Hello, friends. I am sitting here in our homeschool. This is where all the action happens with my kids. It's a complete mess right now because we had homeschool today, and but this is in our basement. But we really love it, and anyway, it's also the only space that I have as quiet right now after doing a day of homeschool with the kids. So, I wanted to come and share some thoughts here because this is something that really helped me, and maybe it'll help you too. So, there's so much energy that we're being blasted with right now. There was daylight savings time. We lost an hour, and there's still all this huge divide. And people who are excited about getting the vaccine, people who are worried about the vaccine being dangerous, people who are worried, not into wearing masks, and people who think masks are great. And I do fall on one end of that spectrum. But one thing that I want to really just talk about is, how do we manage the situation? And we feel tired, irritable. I say from my personal experience, I've been, I'm doing a lot, like burning the candle at both ends, it seems like, homeschooling the kids, also running this business, helping people. But when I go into the Akashic Records, which is such a gift, I realize that I've been so blessed to create this life that I've really wanted to create for so long, a life of freedom. But it's funny because there's this thing called the ego, which will focus on the negative. It's like how we're wired. It just looks for the negative. And it's amazing to me that how, even when things are going great in our lives, we still tend to kind of look for the bad. And it's easy to do that. This is crazy. It's still crazy, crazy times. And I'm going to speak to the light workers, so people who are here holding this high vibration of light. And I know that sounds a little strange to say, the light workers, but who I'm talking to, I'm talking to you. Ultimately, what really matters in all of this is not who's doing what to who. And really, it isn't. I mean, we know that, yeah, there's things that are happening and people are doing stuff and not doing stuff. But yeah, there is that there's been stuff that has been done to us for thousands of years. We're just seeing it now. But coming from a place of looking at the life like that is not ultimately where we want to go. Having said that, it's all about vibration. And when we remember that when we're in a vibration of fear and anger, no matter what is causing that fear and anger, we are not in our highest state, and we're not bringing in the new earth. So if somebody is still, kind of believing the narrative, but they're in a vibration of compassion and they're coming at that from compassion and love, that's what we need. And even if we're seeing some of the dystopian nightmare that's looking like it's playing out around us, even though I don't believe it actually will, and we're coming at a vibration of fear and anger, that's not helpful. So really, it is about rising above. And yes, I'm so glad that there's, people that are fighting back, and I certainly have done that, fighting some of the dystopia that is being presented to us. But ultimately, rising above, rising above, and that heart connection, getting out on the earth, that's what we're building, the new earth. So, I've been spending a lot of time thinking, really trying to focus on understanding other people's perspectives, and some people that I really don't understand that perspective, but trying to have compassion and empathy for how that person has that perspective. It's much easier said than done, and by no means am I perfect. But it's been, the gift of the Akashic Records is that in the Akashic Records, it's you're getting a perspective, a higher perspective of what's happening and why it might be happening. And I have seen that, somebody's wearing a mask and they're wearing it out of a vibration of compassion. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but that's the vibration is what matters. Yes, there is this, dark controllers that are trying to do what they're trying to do with all this dystopian stuff, with this vaccine, with the masks, with the horrifying things that, children are experiencing in schools. But ultimately, it can't succeed. It just can't. All that's happening is people are waking up. And it's like, how bad does it have to get before people wake up? I see it over and over and over again in my work, and I say this to people. 5 years ago, when I first started doing this, people were not really coming to me, talking about spiritual things. It was, I mean, some of them were, but a lot of people were like, there was something they wanted to fix in their lives, but it wasn't as deep. It wasn't like, oh, I want to open my intuition. I'm getting messages, and they weren't curious about things that they are now, of intuition, of doing energy work, and it is happening. People are awakening, and I think it's important for us to remember that when we get sucked into, what's this world going to look like? It looks like we're living in 1984, and believe me, I think that way sometimes too. But there is this divine law, which is free will. We cannot be controlled unless we give our consent to be controlled. What I do, yes, the 3D world is, wearing a mask and all that stuff. I do it when I have to. And I believe me, if I don't have to, I don't. If I can get away with it. And if I feel like somebody's really scared, out of compassion for them, I will. But when I feel like I'm being controlled, then that's a different story. And I want people to see my whole smiling face. That's how we feel safe. That's how we read emotions. That is my sole purpose. That is my vibration. It doesn't mean that that's what somebody else needs to do or should do, but that's just me, and that's what one of my soul gifts. But but it's like the 3D world is showing itself for what it is. It's becoming more and more it's becoming more and more unsustainable, and I think, so it's playing the game. I play the game. I go into the 3D world, come out again, back into where the new earth 5D vibration that I'm working to create with my family here on our homestead. Amazing things happening, a burgeoning homestead, I should say. Not quite yet, although we're getting chicks very soon, and we're tapping maple syrup, and we're trying to do all the stuff. Anyway, we're learning. We make mistakes all the time. Creating this homeschool co-ops, it's happening. There's all these things that these different moms, not just moms, parents, families around our community are doing, but banding together. It is happening. We're building a new way. And I really, in my Akashic records, what was coming up was, look at this, like, look at what's happened in your life. It's so amazing. It's so much to celebrate. And I've been focusing on that. There's some sadness, people who are seeing things very differently than I am, and that can be really hard. I think, obviously the majority of people in the world are seeing things, in terms of buying the narrative. That's okay. That's their sole purpose. That's part of their soul contract, is to go through that process. So if we can rise above and just hold space for that and not force anybody to awaken before they're ready, they will awaken at some point, maybe this lifetime, maybe not. And it doesn't mean that they're bad. And I think that's really important to remember. And believe me, it's a lesson for me. But ultimately, people who are holding the vibration of love and compassion, anybody, no matter if you're awakened to what's going on or not, that is the new earth, and that it is happening. We are moving into that 5D unity consciousness. And ultimately, all the, the dark controllers and all their control, the stuff they're doing, the totalitarianism, the tyranny, the ridiculous rules, that it's almost like, okay, we see what they're doing. This is nothing new. They've been doing this for thousands of years. It's just so much more in our faces now. And we're all being affected. We could look at, some human rights situations and just real horrible things happening in other countries and be like, oh, that's so sad, those poor people. Now it's happening to every single one of us, in some places more than others. What I have picked up on, and what I do feel intuitively, is that is how it will be, that there will be some countries and some states and some businesses that will be much more strict and that we just avoid. And there'll be other places that are all about freedom, and those are the places we support and try to be. And that we will find ways to work around it because of that free will divine law. We cannot be controlled. We are free beings. It is just how the universe works, unless we believe we can be controlled. So that's really important. If we think that somebody trying to control us is winning and that they are able to do that with all these vaccine passports and ridiculous, insane things that are being attempted, that might be our reality. But if, I mean, not to say that if you're living in a place that does that, that it's your fault or anything. It's heartbreaking. There's some learning in that. Obviously, that's part of, for some reason, what your soul has chosen to learn. How do we learn about freedom? We experience the opposite. How do they learn about love? We experience the opposite. And that, in my experience, that's how it works with incarnations. So I hope this has been helpful in some way. I've been really thinking about this and meditating on it, and believe me, the energies are so strong, heavy. I've been tired. I had some dizziness today, probably because of lack of sleep. I've been working a lot, and my message, with homeschooling my kids, creating content for this program I'm teaching, the Intuitive Guide Certification Program, which is a 10-month program, training people to do similar work to me, and coming up with these new systems, homesteading, the homeschool cooperatives. We're building it, and it takes a lot of energy. But the message that I get is to also be gentle with ourselves and give ourselves time to just be alone, to be in community, yes, but also to be alone and just go inward, be outside in nature. So that is my prayer, that is my hope, and I feel so optimistic about what's happening, no matter what. Even though we see there's such different perspectives of how people are, what they're perceiving, but how can we find common ground even when, and so we're not, so we move past this division of just unity, unity, unity. That is where we need to go. So, all right. Hopefully this has been helpful in some way. Much love, many blessings.